Welcome to K-Drama Recaps, your one-stop shop for all things K-Drama. If you're new around here, just a heads up, spoilers ahead. With that out of the way, welcome to episode 1 of the Apple TV show called Pachinko, based on the New York Times bestseller of the same name by the Korean-American author Min-Jin Lee. A bit of warning before we continue. The story itself jumps back and forth in time a lot, so if this recap seems confusing, it ain't my fault. The year is 1915. Korea is a colony of Japan, and we are introduced to our first character, Yangjin, who believes there is a curse on her family after 3 sons never make it past their first birthday. She visits the local shaman with her tale of woe, asking for that curse to be lifted. Fast forward to 1989, where a Korean businessman named Solomon bumps into the glass ceiling of his American firm while trying to make it to the apparently hallowed halls of the 43rd floor. He is turned down for a promotion, but in an act of desperation to prove himself worthy, he claims to be able to close a lucrative deal due to his background as a Korean who grew up in Japan. Apparently, a hotel deal is being held hostage by a single Korean landowner who refuses to sell, and Solomon feels like he's the Korean who can crack this deal wide open. In exchange, he asks for a promotion to the 43rd floor and a significant pay bump if he can deliver on that promise. We then jump back to the shaman's shack in 1915. The shaman does her magic dance and tells Yangjin that the curse is broken, and she will have a child through which the family will thrive. Yangjin gives birth to a daughter, and they name her Sunja. Sunja's father, Huni, adores her. Back to the future in Osaka, 1989. Solomon arrives at his father Mosasu's Pachinko parlor, where he's immediately chided for gaining some non-existent mystery weight while in America.
Too much pizza.
Other than that, it's a sweet family reunion. In the next scene, we jump back to 1920s Korea, where Sunja and her father are walking through the fish market together and have to keep their heads down while the Japanese police officers walk by. Sunja is shown to be one smart cookie, as she's able to help a local fisherman negotiate a much better deal for his fish than he ever could. Breaking up this happy scene is a reminder of Japan's iron grip as the police reprimand a man and take him away. On the ferry boat back home, Sunja asks her father about what just happened, and her father tells her that his job is to shield her from the ugliness of this world. Huni is a good father, and these are hard times. Back in 1989, Solomon and his father walk home, and he reunites with his grandmother. It's at this point we are introduced to the fact that this is the granny version of Sunja that we saw back in the scene from the 1920s. Sunja has come a long way from where she was back in the 1920s when her parents disagreed on whether or not she even needed an education as a female. Apparently, society back then just wasn't as woke as we are now. Speaking of education, we see Sunja's education by the local Haenyeo as she dives for abalone, scaring the dickens out of her father in the process. That evening, we learn that Huni and Yangjin are running a boarding house as Huni proudly presents Sunja's catch of the day to the fishermen who are staying at the boarding house after a long day's work. The men enjoy food and drink, but apparently one of them enjoys it a little too much, and in a haze of alcohol, talks about how he would love to throw off the yoke of his Japanese oppressors. This talk makes the others uneasy, as if news were to get out of his opinions, any one of them would be in danger. Sunja, who is quite the precocious 7-year-old, tells the loose-lipped fisherman to leave the boarding house as his presence there would endanger her parents. Unfortunately for her, news does get out, and Huni and Yangjin are questioned by the Japanese officers who are looking for the fishermen who fled, thanks to Sunja's quick thinking. Jumping back to 1989, Granny Sunja and Solomon are cooking in the kitchen, where Solomon expresses his worries about his father, who plans to get a loan from the bank to open up a second pachinko parlor. Their conversation is interrupted by his father's girlfriend Etsuko, whose clown makeup and eccentric personality distract him long enough to burn the pajan they were cooking. In the next scene, we see Solomon back in his childhood home, reminiscing about the past and thinking about Etsuko's daughter Hana, who went missing. It is revealed that Etsuko hired a detective to track Hana down, but has so far been unsuccessful in locating her. It's apparent that Solomon and Hana have a special bond that will be explored in future episodes. Granny Sunja is seen in the kitchen, thinking about the past, and we are brought back to 1920s Korea, where the fisherman has been found and caught by Japanese police to be publicly beaten, arrested, and never heard from again. Granny Sunja, now living in Japan, is fully aware of the paradox of her existence, living as an unwelcome alien in a country that once colonized her home. Tokyo, 1989. Solomon heads to work in Tokyo to try to close this hotel deal and meets with his new boss, Mr. Andrews. But inauspiciously, their introduction is interrupted by the news of the death of Japan's Emperor Hirohito. Rewind to 1920s Korea. Sunja's father dies of tuberculosis, with Sunja's name being the last word leaving his lips. We are left with the monologue of her father telling her how the twists and turns of life made him strong for her, and she would need to do the same for her own children. Cut forward 9 years later. Sunja is now a young woman walking through the same fish market she used to walk with her father. She catches the attention of a businessman in a sharp white suit who is informed of who she is. It's clear he can't keep his eyes off her. He's smitten. They lock eyes. Fade to black. If you enjoyed this episode of K-Drama Recaps, press that like button and subscribe to our channel, as this helps our content get out to more eyeballs. Is there a Korean drama you'd like us to recap? Let us know in the comments below, and hopefully we will cover that drama in future videos. See you in the next episode.